One of Animal Kingdom's opening day lands, Dinoland USA, is currently on the chopping board, with an announcement regarding its removal feeling imminent. While rumours have been swirling for the past few years since a parks panel at D23 shared that they were exploring options for the land's redevelopment, there is yet to be a formal announcement regarding the change. Much to my dismay, however, I am confident that this year's D23 event will officially signal the end of Dinoland as we know it. So, in this video, we'll be exploring the intentional lack of permanence in the area and how Dinoland came to be the latest potential victim of change, considering multiple viewpoints on the land's strengths and weaknesses. Before I begin, I'd like to preface the video by saying I am a Dinoland USA fan. I'll be the one batting away any slander or accusations of false from grace, as I adore the area. I love the charm they put into certain elements, the attempt to adhere to the vision and goals with which the park launched, and above all else, I love Dinosaur as a ride. I know some people don't, but I'll put my hands up and say that I do, even if that inadvertently discredits my opinions as a creator. While I'm always open to positive change and growth, I fear on this occasion that ends will not justify the means, and a land built on hope and optimism will face its untimely end without being given the chance to be something exceptionally great. The fact that the land has survived this long, despite plans for its replacement openly being discussed for the past half-decade, is an absolute miracle. Though slowly but surely, the area has been facing cuts and receiving almost no attempts for improvements or redefinement, leading to a new wave of theme park visitors facing a product which is shockingly different to the rest of the Disney immersion they've become accustomed to. All of this leads to the conclusion that Dinoland really isn't a priority and in its current form doesn't fit with Animal Kingdom or the quality expected from Disney guests, which really poses the question, does Dinoland deserve to be saved? So why would the closure of Dinoland be significant? With the exception of Primeval Whirl, which was actually a Dinoland attraction closed in 2020, the only other former Animal Kingdom ride that's been removed since opening was the Discovery Riverboats back in 1999. Everything else they've removed at the park has been a nighttime show, a performance like Tarzan Rocks, an interactive guest walking route, or a roaming character performer. Likely a testament to the lack of rides at the park to get rid of, Animal Kingdom doesn't circulate or revamp through them at the same rate as other parks. So, in short, it's a big deal if they do close the area, as it's not really something they've done before. This is, however, a generic analysis, as this will be applicable for any area of the park that gets refurbished, but Dinoland has another layer of significance in the original vision. I don't want to get all Disney purist, as we all love to talk about the vision and how it was skewed prior to opening, but in short, when the park opened in 1998, the dedication read as follows.
Welcome to the kingdom of animals, real, ancient, and imagined. A kingdom ruled by lions, dinosaurs, and dragons. A kingdom of balance, harmony, and survival. A kingdom we enter to share in the wonder, gaze at the beauty, thrill at the drama, and learn.
You'll notice the mention of dragons and how they're not in the park, but also notice dinosaurs, who represent a key part of what Animal Kingdom was originally intended to be. It's easy to get hung up on things like this and the overarching concept of Walt's dreams, so I won't, but I will say to lose yet another integral part of this opening vision would be disappointing. Whether it's a good or a bad thing that this area is in hot water is a hotly debated topic, so let's begin with the case against Dinoland. First up, it feels cheap and unfinished. Between the funfair games, which are important for the lore, but you don't really know that unless you know what you're looking for, and the generic attractions, it's easy to see why people feel this way. None of the attractions in this area were newly created for the park. Primeval Whirl was a manic mouse coaster, Triceratops Spin is a Dumbo, and even Dinosaur is the exact same ride track as California's Indiana Jones. And the one coaster which would have been totally original was scrapped due to budget constraints. And as you walk in, especially now, you see fencing and concrete which hardly feel comparable to the quality of immersion you see in newer lands like Pandora. And then on this, another argument is the attractions aren't good. So when Countdown to Extinction was reworked into Dinosaur, the movements were streamlined and diminished, the story changed and the height restriction was lowered, and so it became more family friendly, which has led to a recent perception of the ride being boring compared to its counterparts. The land is also home to the Boneyard, a playground featuring a sandpit and climbing frames, but it would be fair to question why you'd pay $169 for entry for your kids to play in a sandpit when these are available elsewhere in public areas for free. As for Chester and Hester's Dinorama, it's easy to understand again that people may walk in and think, why have I paid this much for a glorified parking lot carnival? When less than a 5-minute walk away, you can find yourself scaling Mount Everest or riding a Banshee. And then once they've gone on these rides, a lot of people argue that the rides aren't good. We all know that this criticism is targeted at Dinosaur rather than Triceratops Spin, as that's doing a great job of spinning. But in the name of honest and accurate journalism, I have to concede that this is true. Due to the complicated technical show elements, the sheer number and engineering force of the animatronics, and the complexity of the system, Dinosaur breaks down a lot, and even when it's functioning, the B system is utilised pretty frequently. In my personal experience, out of the dozens of rides I've done in the last year, I've only had one perfect ride through. Unfortunately, I've got no evacuations under my belt just yet, but I was genuinely surprised when all of the elements worked, which doesn't help Dinosaur's case. And lastly, the argument is that the area is not popular. And this again has some truth to it. Almost every other ride in the park, with the exception of It's Tough to Be a Bug, which is also facing impending doom, is an e-ticket ride. Everest, Kilimanjaro Safari, Flight of Passage, Navi River Journey, these are all big rides, and in my experience, especially on mid-traffic days, Dinosaur and Everest have very similar waiting times, but Everest is undeniably the more socially popular and highly regarded of the two rides. So even though the numbers and the queues are there, people aren't viewing them in the same way. But there are also a few redeeming factors, so I'm proud to present the In Defence of Dinoland case. So while this one is obviously subjective, I wanted to swing around to this point as I think there's room for discussion here. I think the rides are good. Regarding the Boneyard, I don't think there's any harm in it being there, and it would be a shame to see it go. I think its key benefit is being a safe, calmer space without too much noise or foot traffic, which is still the case on busier days. Even as an adult, Animal Kingdom is one of the hardest parks to navigate as there's not too much infrastructure in place for when things get a little bit overwhelming. While Epcot has the Wally Play Zone, and Magic Kingdom has the Splash Mountain Playground and Casey's Splash Zone, I really think that some guests, especially those travelling in families with small children, would feel its absence and miss having a place to let off some steam. And then to Dinosaur, which definitely deserves a bit of a defence. I love a weatherproof dark ride, and while I may be the only person saying this, I think the narrative of the ride with the dramatic arc is great, but I will admit that the storyline could be updated, whether by bringing in a little bit of the Jurassic Park "we're bringing back live dinosaurs but it's a bad idea" commentary, linking it with the lore a bit more, or trying something completely new with a narrative. An update wouldn't hurt. Whatever they choose to do, it's undeniably valuable to have an indoor attraction for rainy days, and it's even better to have one that's at least entertaining. Another defence of Dinoland is that people still love dinosaurs. Clearly shown by the cinematic success of Jurassic Park, maybe not the quality of the reboots, and the warm reception of the new Jurassic Park additions at the Universal parks, customers still have favourable attitudes towards dinosaurs, and despite social perception, it's not just limited to kids. And do I think more people are interested in dinosaurs than Indiana Jones or Encanto? Yes. So at its core, I don't think it's a weak theme for a land. It's also different from nearly everything else on Disney property, turning a nose up at the IP integration and running with an original backstory that has a lot of heart and potential to be reshaped. We're getting on to something a little bit more serious here, which are the operational constraints and pressures as a result of closing. So this one's more of an in defence of delaying the destruction of Dinoland than actual Dinoland itself, but that's beside the point. A purely practical operational analysis is that Animal Kingdom doesn't have many food outlets. As we speak, Animal Kingdom has 33 food outlets open, only 3 of which are in the Dinoland boundary. This doesn't seem like it would be too many to lose considering Dinoland's offerings are all quick service outlets, and 10% of food outlets for almost 20% of the park space isn't really that tragic. But within the park there are only 5 major quick service restaurants, with the rest being more grab and go outlets. We've got Restaurantosaurus, Flame Tree Barbecue, Yak and Yeti Quick Service, Pizzafari and Satuli Canteen. And at present, these are evenly spaced throughout the park and the majority are within existing land boundaries. With the whole Dinoland area hypothetically closed, it wouldn't be that guests would be inconvenienced to reach these outlets, but it would put a lot of pressure on these outlets. It's also crucial to note that removing Restaurantosaurus would remove any options for hot dogs, burgers and chicken nuggets within the park, which may limit the food choices for less adventurous eaters or those with a plant-based diet, as the area is hosted by Impossible Foods. A more logical option would be to implement infrastructure to accommodate the displacement prior to the closure, but more on this later. Finally, this one is a bit nostalgia driven and not so relevant given the direction in which the park has grown, which I will accept, but it also poses an opportunity for park cohesion, and that is that Dinoland has invaluable contributions to the park narrative. Circling back to the park dedication I presented earlier, Dinoland touches on a lot of really interesting ideas. Education, research, exploring the power and significance of nature, and really above all else, human relationships with animals and human relationships with science. My favourite part about this is that it's different from the rest of the park, which primarily explores conservation relationships, whereas Dinoland explores our capitalist relationships with the kitsch and tendency to trivialise and monetise living things for our own benefit. I think it adds an extra layer of sophistication to the park narrative in the same way the motif of poaching was explored in Kilimanjaro Safaris a few iterations ago, and helps to elevate Animal Kingdom from a zoo with a few IPs shoehorned in to a space offering opportunities for education on many layers and promoting critical thinking. Again, there may need to be some changes made to convey this a bit more clearly and concisely, but I do fear that replacing it with a capybara petting zoo may not have the same impact. Although I do love capybaras. So what happens next? There are really two anticipated outcomes for the future of Dinoland USA. Either it stays, albeit with some changes, or it goes. And with Joe Rohde recently posting a video of him going back into the Imagineering office, it likely means one of two things. He's either working on the project directly, or he's being brought in as a consultant for the redevelopment. Though, on a note on this, there have just been some kind of like permits filed for Journey into Imagination, so he may have been working on that instead, but I didn't know this at the time of writing, so just ignore that. So if you've never heard of Joe Rohde, you may be wondering why this is significant. Basically, Joe Rohde is a person with influence, vision, and power to upheave existing plans entirely. In his career, he's been an architect, an author, an executive, an Imagineer, and most relevant to this video, the lead designer of Animal Kingdom. Whether he's present to oversee development or just to recalibrate a sense of vision, his involvement sparks a lot of hope for a lot of people. Assuming he is involved in the project, and in this hypothetical working on the preservation of Dinoland USA, there's a few potential revisits to original concepts which he could draw attention to. While Rohde was responsible for some of the concept art for Dinoland, it was another Imagineer, James Wong, who produced the concept art for a coaster that was originally intended to be included in the area, the Excavator. This was unfortunately a victim of budget constraints alongside my beloved Beastly Kingdom. The wooden coaster could easily go down the Iron Gwazi wood hybrid route, and Animal Kingdom could find itself housing a second coaster, finally bringing it up to speed with all the other Disney parks. Even as of late 2004, there was still hope amongst Disney reporters that the Excavator coaster would open, and it would be great to see a few more thrills in the park. Many, however, including Rohde himself, have highlighted a need not for more thrills in the park, but rather more family-accessible attractions, which could be satisfied by referring back to an alternative concept artwork instead. This one was created by Rohde himself and shows the dinosaur ride with what appears to be a walkthrough section. Whether functioning within the existing ride space in a people mover-esque way or housed in a separate show building, this is another great option if the team were hesitant to add an outdoor coaster. I think it's important not to idolise one individual's contributions too heavily or invalidate the work of other creatives, but the undeniable positive is that Rohde's involvement could be indicative of something high quality and immersive coming, regardless of the project. So what do I think is going to happen? Realistically, I don't think that the Excavator would be enough to save Dinoland and revitalise the area, but I do think it will be a strong start. The key issue with its implementation would be timelines, as the coaster would likely be part of a broader renovation of the area, which would still require the closure of the aforementioned restaurants and attractions, leading to the same problem outlined previously about guest displacement, which once again points to the notion that adding another land prior to closing Dinoland in any capacity would be the most logical idea for managing capacity and redirecting traffic. I'm putting it out there that if this were to be the case, Conservation Station would be the next to go. You've heard it here first. Construction would begin, and in 2 years after the new land is debuted, renovation would begin in Dinoland, being reopened just in time for the 30th anniversary of Animal Kingdom, paying homage to the original vision of the park and opening as an expanded, complete product full of state-of-the-art attractions and finally becoming a park worthy of full-day status. I've got a whole How Could Dinoland Be Rethemed, Dinoland Reborn video in the works, so keep an eye for that soon. But any change of this scale, however, would be expensive and time consuming, while accepting that attractions and food outlets may be busier for a few years whilst Dinoland is closed would feel a lot more realistic. My personal hope is that Dinoland will hold out a little bit longer. Whether I'm nostalgic, biased, or just a little misplaced in my hope, I truly, truly hope that whatever is chosen is considered, exciting, and inspired. And so that is the end of the video. Do you think that Dinoland should be saved, or should we just say goodbye, Dr. Seeker, see you later? Let me know which side of the fence you're on, what you would do to improve Dinoland, whether you'd get rid of it, whether you'd put something new in its place, whether you also think that Conservation Station should go. Sorry, Art Academy, I love you, but it's time. It is time to leave. What operational constraints are in place, kind of where you stand. Let me know in the comments and let's have a discussion. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications to make sure you are informed when my next video is out, and we'll see you real soon.